The Chinese embassy in South Korea said in a statement released Tuesday that China has suspended the issuing of short-term visas for South Korean citizens. The decision will be reassessed when South Korea removes its discriminatory travel restrictions targeting travelers from China. It's China's first countermeasure after a few countries adopted discriminatory entry restrictions against Chinese travelers. On January 2nd, the South Korean government halted short-term visas for people traveling from China and temporarily stopped the plan of increasing flights from China. And at the same time, flights from the Chinese mainland to South Korea will only be able to enter through Incheon International Airport. In recent days, Chinese netizens have repeatedly exposed that South Korea's discriminatory rules against Chinese travelers are insulting and that the COVID checks only target Chinese people. Many netizens said that when they got off the plane, they were issued a yellow card and had to hang it around their necks and were taken to designated areas like criminals. Relevant revelations have triggered strong dissatisfaction on the internet in China. After China announced countermeasures on Tuesday, South Korea said that its entry restriction measures against China are based on scientific and objective grounds. However, according to South Korean media, from January 2nd to the 9th, 17.5% of passengers arriving in South Korea from China tested positive on arrival, and the figure on Tuesday stood at 5.5%. There's no scientific evidence to prove whether this ratio posed a threat to public health in South Korea and whether the corresponding measures in South Korea are appropriate. Why doesn't South Korea test travelers from other countries at the peak of the pandemic on arrival and announce their positive rate? Besides, these measures not only hurt Chinese travelers' feelings, but also South Korea's economy. Chinese tourists were the largest source of income for the South Korean tourism industry before COVID, and 70% of the retail sales of South Korean department stores were from Chinese tourists. Discouraging tourists from China is no doubt going to have a big impact on the country's tourism industry and consumption. On the contrary, many other countries like Thailand have welcomed Chinese tourists with open arms, and they're expecting a boom in tourism revenue from China in the new year. The countermeasures that China is currently implementing are not aimed at South Korea, but the policy that discriminates against Chinese tourists. China and South Korea are close neighbors and inseparable partners. The economic and trade cooperation between the two countries, powered through the pandemic, benefited both countries and ensured the stability of South Korea's industrial chains. On the other hand, discrimination never ends well and can only lead to lose-lose situation. Hopefully, all of this will end soon and things will go back to the way they were before the pandemic.